Hey guys, this is Manshark Sub LPs. I'm Sub, this is Europa Universalis IV, and this is episode 18 of the AI's playthrough of our Millennia in the Making game. Let's get to it! Oh, looks like Volga Bulgaria just ended the war with Vladimir, presumably in Vladimir's favor because they were winning. Prussia just doing its thing. And of course, France going to war with people, doing its thing as well. And that war, again, with Britain and Portugal, still happening. Still happening, no sign of it ending. I mean, Portugal are winning it hands down, but yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much how things are. Anyway, in this episode I wanted to talk about mission structure. Not necessarily in Shadowrun, but in general. I kind of had a thought about it while I was getting lunch. So, let's look at Dungeons & Dragons really quickly. It's very, very stereotypical, very easy to go to. Dungeons & Dragons is a very structured game. Very structured. It's very mathematically tight, if you will. You've got stats. The GM has stats, or the DM in this case, and there's a very set sort of what you are expected to do. As a party, you've got a party level, and you go up. I'm talking about 3.5, of course, and Pathfinder, I guess, if you want to go into that, because that's what I've got the most experience in for Dungeons & Dragons. Much more experience in other areas, ladies. And yeah, so you've got a party level. Each encounter has a level. And that encounter level dictates, depending on your GM style, how much experience and loot you get, and also just basically how challenging it is. That's the basic part of it. The encounter level determines how challenging the encounter is for a party. And the game flat out says, you should encounter this percentage of this particular encounter level at this particular stage. So the general rule is 4 encounters per day, or 4 encounters before you rest. If the encounter has an equivalent and is an equal level to your party level, then you are expected to expend 25% of your resources. Now, that's where it gets a little bit tricky because there is some disagreement as to what resources means. Resources is everything your party has. Items, so potions, one-shot items, abilities, spells, hit points, and so on. Most people end up using hit points and spells as their currency, if you will, here, as their expenditure. And that's because there's always the feeling, people will have experienced this before in like video games and such, where you don't use your one-use items because you always expect, oh, I'll need this next time, or that sort of thing, so you end up taking hit point damage instead. And it can be very similar with Dungeons & Dragons style of spell casting, where you've got to prepare your spell and then use it after that. Is Connaught gone to war with Britain? What's going on here? Oh, that's Valencia. Okay. Wow. Really losing hard now, Britain. Yeah, to both wars. Might see a bit of change going on in the future. Jeez, Valencia have completely occupied German, except for this little part here. German Mexico. Wow, there's a lot of land just changing around. The Iroquois in on. Is that British War they're in on? Yeah. Amazing. Anyway, let's not get distracted by the actual game going on in the background here. So yeah, Dungeons & Dragons is a very structured sort of thing, and it's something like, oh, 50% of your encounters should be equal level, 5% should be at +3 to your level, or counted as overpowering, and that's your boss fight sort of thing. And, you know, it's got a whole percentage breakdown of this many encounters should be at this particular stage. It's even got one in there where this many encounters should be over your encounter level by like +1, but there should be something in the encounter that makes the encounter easier if the players work out what it is. Be it a dungeon feature, or a magical effect, or something. It doesn't matter what it is, just that it's supposed to make the job easier for the players if they figure out what it is. So they can either think with their heads or think with their arms. Nice and simple. Minga's independence is guaranteed by Volga, Bulgaria. That's interesting, guys. It's very interesting. I don't think they need anybody to guarantee their independence. I mean, the Oirits might deal with them a little bit. Impressive. Excuse me. So, yes, D&D structure. It's very easy to plan out a D&D dungeon, or mission, in fact, a session for D&D, because you're basically saying you're going into a dungeon. There will be encounters in the dungeon. Now, the dungeon doesn't have to be a hole in the ground. It can be a cave system. It can be a temple. It can be a city. It can be anything, but the basic unit that you use here is dungeon. And, you know, you've got so many encounters in the dungeon. You know, say you want to clear it in a day, you'll have 4 encounters in the dungeon. Done. One will be the boss fight at the end. Doesn't have to be overpowering. It can just be a little bit challenging. Could be one of those difficult, but if the players work out at what the go is with it, then it gets easier. It's simple. And hell, I got a fucking shelf of D&D books behind me, like a 3.5 books, and you know, just for core Pathfinder book, but that's because most of that shit's just online anyway. But yeah, I've got over a shelf of 3.5 behind me, because I'm also including the D20 stuff, like the third-party stuff in there. And there's loot generation tables, there's monster stats, there are so many things that you can just pull from. It's just easy, I mean, and I've got things here, like I've still got to finish reading the Expedition to the Ruins of Greyhawk book. I'm about halfway through that. I stopped reading it a while ago, but I should really finish that because it was a very interesting sort of... Oh, it's a full campaign, and I like reading that sort of thing, where somebody's gone and put together a whole campaign in a full-sized book and just go at it sort of thing. But contrast the very structured appearance of Dungeons & Dragons mission design with Shadowrun, or with Vampire the Masquerade, or the Requiem, whichever. Vampire, basically World of Darkness stuff. Or Shadowrun, which I've already mentioned, or let's see, what other systems? Mech Warrior? I still want to get people to play a fucking game of Mech Warrior. I've got the third ed books, and man, I just want to run people through character generation in that system. That is amazing. Seriously, I rate Mech Warrior very highly. Deathwatch. Deathwatch and the other Warhammer 40k RPG book lines from Fantasy Flight Games, my bros. Yeah, basically all that stuff doesn't have structure. I mean, it'll have some sort of mention about, hey, you know, his general ideas, but there's no, oh, you must have, or you should have this many encounters, the players will be expected to do this many things. It's very freeform. See, in Dungeons & Dragons, you can do it wrong. And it's quite difficult to do it wrong, honestly, but you can do it wrong. If you, like, say you've got a party level of 5 and you set them up against a encounter level of 10, that's wrong. They should never be fighting that. That should be a story scene, not an actual fight. Because something with a level of 10 is going to annihilate a party level of 5. I think 4 is as high as you should be going, and then that's really rough. Like, really rough. Is Canard getting occupied by somebody, or is that just my eyesight being shit? Probably my eyesight being shit. Is losing these wars yet? Oh my god, just end the fucking wars. I want these guys here to rebel. It'll be cool. Come on, do it. They're not gonna do it. If there was somewhere where I could see what everybody's liberty desires were, that would be pretty cool, but it's not gonna let us do that. I know it's not gonna let us do that. That'd be sensible, wouldn't it? Alaska hasn't been in existence for long enough to have much of a liberty desire. Yeah, we're really just looking at that, at the German West Indies, aren't we? Even German Quebec is fine. So yes, in D&D you can do it wrong. And to be fair, in every game system you can do it wrong. I mean, if you could do it right, it wouldn't be a game. And there wouldn't be any, you know, skill involved in structuring a mission. But D&D is very easy to get right. Because it tells you. It just flat out tells you this is what you do and this is how you do it. You can have little variations, little twists, little things like that, but it's very, very structured. Even down to everything that happens, you'll literally just... there's a stat for it, and you just roll a dice against it. And there's no real leeway on it. In D&D, you hit and you do damage, or you don't. Or you succeed at a skill check, or you don't. In Shadowrun, for example, yes, you can either hit and do damage, or you don't, but you can also hit, do damage, and fuck up your gun. You can hit in a particular way. You can do stuff like that. What was the system? The Star Wars RPG series, Edge of the Empire and Age of Rebellion, and I think there's one other one, but I'm not quite sure what it is. Those systems are very keen on avoiding the hit and do damage or hit and do nothing, or succeed at your skill check or do nothing things. And it's an amazingly complicated system at first, but once you get into it and once you realize that it's supposed to be narrative, that the players are supposed to help the GM with the narrative decisions on how things happen, it works very nicely. But I digress a little bit. Mission planning in Shadowrun is what we're down to. I think I worked out what that noise is. That noise is the end of a war. Because I just saw Arabia take all this land off Azuran. Interesting. Canada's independence is being supported by Arabia. But, well, don't like the chances. Particularly seeing as Afghanistan is aligned with France and Cypriot. That being said, we're at war with Vastagotland. For some reason. Whatever. Anyway. Mission design in Shadowrun and Deathwatch and Vampire. Or Old World of Darkness, whatever. Is vastly different from D&D. In D&D, we've been over it like twice so far this episode. You just follow the rules. Yeah, you pick a dungeon theme. Yeah, you got particular guys you might want to involve. No problem, but you basically follow the rules. Stat everything out. And just sort it. In the other ones, you can do exactly the same thing if you want. You can do that. I don't like doing it because it's sort of it's very restrictive, if you will. Very sort of, okay, so this is how you must behave sort of thing. And I don't really like that. It sort of just seems to take away some of the fun from me to be constantly looking up shit and being like, oh no, this is exactly what has to happen now. Therefore, it is what happens. I mean, that's all well and good, and in D&D and Pathfinder it works because there's the assumed structure and everybody is going along with that. What I like to do when I'm planning a Shadowrun mission, for example, now this is relevant, is I don't say, okay, so they're going to need this many encounters and they should be this tough. I don't even say, okay, so the thing should be this tough. what I do is I look at what the mission is. Let's use an example. The mission where my players had to defend the leopard, Mr. Snuggle Whiskers as his name was, against hostile eco-activists. That mission had three elements and a setting. The setting was a rich dude's mansion and compound. Immediately you've got some cool stuff you can pull out there. I mean, what do rich dudes do in their compound? Well, I can think of a few things, but what do rich dudes who buy their daughter's pet leopards do on their compound? Well, now things have opened up considerably. So, I designed the compound first. Wall around the outside, some, towers to watch from, a couple of gates. The buildings themselves, I lifted the plans from some sort of Dubai mansion sort of thing. They're building out in the desert. I don't know. But basically I lifted plans of the houses. They didn't use those plans much anyway. It was mainly just the compound, which I Google Mapped. There's a palace one of the many palaces in Abu Dhabi that I just took a Google Map shot of and drew on. Easy. Private beach, because of course he would. Some water purifiers off water so that, his daughter can swim in the purified water, not the polluted muck. Some trees, some foresty sort of areas for the leopard to feel more at home in. A plantation, because of course rich dudes have plantations on their huge mansion compounds. Why wouldn't they? Warehouses, because the bloke's kind of a smuggler, but, that's a thing. That's how he's rich. And, yeah, so that's your setting planned out. Nice and easy. Tweak it a little bit, like, with the particulars of security networks and things like that, but it's not a big deal. Not a big deal. You're just done. We're done with the setting now. 3 elements. The first is the leopard, Mr. Snuggle Whiskers. He's the objective. I mean, you protect him. He's the leopard. He doesn't particularly give a shit about you or anything that you do. And he basically, I gave him a set list of things to do over the 5 days that they had to look after him. Most of them were kind of dickish because, well, the leopard is kind of a dick, particularly to people who aren't his treasured owners. And he resented having to be looked after, of course. So yeah, there were just a couple of things for him to do. No biggie, he's sorted. I just pulled the big cat stat line out of the main core rulebook for Shadowrun. Not a problem. That's one of our parties done. Second party, the players. Already sorted. The players are the players, they'll just do what they do. And then we have the third party, the OPFOR, or the opposing force. Now this is where we get into how I actually like to plan missions out. I like to have the players on one side and my NPCs on the other, my hostile force on the other. We can have neutral NPCs, that's no problem. Nothing says you can't have that, and honestly it's good to have neutral or even friendly NPCs. But the hostile NPCs, the opposing force. In this case, it was another runner team. Simple. Really, really simple. Just another runner team. I pulled the stat lines out of the core book sample characters because I was really stressed for time. And didn't even give them a whole bunch of equipment, just sort of pro-rated them some shit. So, they had a boat to get around with, they had a couple of drones, okay, so, there was a rigger, 2 magic users, and 3 combat dudes. So we had a total of 6 people in the team, I can count. Of those 6, and in our Shadowrunning team there's 5 people, so they're only outnumbered by 1, and I'll be honest, my players are somewhat min-maxed, and some of them are just fucking useless, but some of them are min-maxed to the point where if I don't throw a decent number of people at them, well, what's a mission if you deal with it in the first 5 minutes? Like, that's just shit. So, obviously I couldn't have that. But, anyway, so the opposing force. One rigger gave him a couple of drones, gave him a boat to play with. The 3 combat dudes, all spec'd out exactly the same, because YOLO. And 2 magic users, one a shaman, one a mage. And they just sort of hung together. And much like I did with the leopard, with Mr. Snuggle Whiskers, I gave the opposing force a timeline. 5 days, this is what they do on each day. And it was quite easy to do. It was just a series of probes and little scouting sort of attempts and setups for the big fight on the final day. And to their credit, the players did manage to find some of those, but we're getting back into what's happened historically, not actual mission design here. So back to mission design. You see what I've done? I've got the players on one side, the opposing force on the other, plan around it. What's just taken that land? Persia. Persia is at war with Afghanistan? No, it's Ming that it's at war with there. Huh. Okay. That's fine. And at war with Thrace? The Nicaeans. Okay. That's fine. Is this fucking war over yet? Nope. Of course it isn't. How are we doing with it though? 56. Oh my god, just lose it already. Come on, guys. This is really painful. They occupy most of your fucking overseas territory. They just haven't really managed to do much on the mainland itself. Bloody British. So, mission design. It's not really too much in the way of design, is there? I've just really sort of, here's one force, here's the other, here's the setting. What would you do in this particular thing? What's your objective? How do you go about doing it? Now, understandably, the mission with Mr. Snuggle Whiskers wasn't your standard sort of mission. It was a defense mission, which is a definite type of a mission. But most of the time, your players will be looking to go out and do something, not sit home and wait for something to happen to them. And I swear to God, if I hear that they're waiting for a story event one more time, I'm gonna fucking cut a bitch. War with Prussia ended. Not exactly sure who that war was with. Ah, a lot of people. Alright, cool. So yes, the players as protagonists should be going out and doing something. So the opposing force will usually be a defensive force. A lot of the time it just sort of runs in with what the particular setting is. They're infiltrating a corporate building. Your opposing force is for corp security. Done. They're looking to ambush a convoy. The opposing force are the convoy guards. Sorted. And all you need to do is stat up a little bit, or have an idea of what the stats should be like. Now, Shadowrun makes it very easy because you just, 2 dice for standard, 3 dice for standard, and then you just double that. Or it actually lets you assign what's called a professional rating to an NPC, which is just roll double that number of dice, and it ranges from 1 to 6. Really easy to work out. And you could just sort of say, okay, so a professional rating of 1 is like a gang thug sort of dude. Professional 2, we're talking beat cop. Professional 3, okay, we're starting to talk like, corporate security. Professional 4, you're looking at an army bloke. Professional 6, I'll just go up to straight away, you're looking at spec forces. Very easy to just sort of work out and work around. So if they ever surprise you with, oh, we want to go and do this now, you're like, okay, no problems. Go and do that now, and you've already got your professional ratings. Now, if you want those guys to be specialized for a job, then you've got to look into actually statting them out. But the main thing to do is to realize that, hey, your opposing force should have the home ground advantage. while the players should have the element of initiative on their side. I'm not talking initiative as in they go first in combat. I'm talking initiative as in they're the ones making the plan to attack. They know where they're going to attack. They should be doing their best to sort of maximize their odds at that attack being successful. The opposing force doesn't know when the players are going to attack unless they telegraph it. But they do have the home ground advantage. They've got security systems, defensive knowledge. They probably have a very good knowledge of the area that they're in. Like if it's corporate security, they know what the building's plans are like. They know where stairs are. They know all of this sort of stuff. The players need to do work to get that information. So ultimately what I'm saying is that mission design, unless you're playing D&D, and even then you can sort of wing it a bit, shouldn't be an exercise in statting everything out. Unless you really like doing that sort of stuff. I know I do it for a few things because, well, I'm not going to lie. It's fun. But, well, there's just sometimes when you don't have the time. You don't have the inclination. You don't care too much. And that's when you can say, okay, take a step back. Let's just rough it in around the edges. Do the roughing. And then go from there. And that's when you can say, players, opposing force, location. What's the mission? It doesn't even matter what the mission is. The mission is just going to be like some excuse to get the players there to fight the opposing force, and ultimately a victory condition, of course. But it's a means to an end, not the end itself, if you catch my meaning there. Yeah, so there's that, I guess. I mean, if you want to write up a whole fucking campaign like in this Expedition to the Ruins of Greyhawk book, or I've got another one around somewhere. Just looking over these books at back here. Ah, yeah, like, yeah, I've got full campaign settings written up. I've got something called Bard's Gate, which... What the fuck is this? Hold up a second, guys. Oh, it's a city source book from Necromancer Games. Looks pretty cool. Gonna have to read that at some point. I got a lot of books that I haven't read. World's Largest Dungeon was one that we had a bit of a look at once. It's not very well put together, to be honest. It's got some errors in it. I still feel it could have been salvaged, but, well, players didn't. I think this is a campaign here, Trouble at Durbanford. Anyway, yeah, basically what I'm saying is, feel free to design. Feel free to come up with a fucking massive book of everything, and I'm sure it'll be amazing. I mean, I really think that some of the best things have been fully statted up settings. But don't feel like you got to. I mean, it just gets a point where too much detail. I mean, you don't want to be flicking through a book to find out what happens when your players do something. What you want to be doing at that point is saying, okay, you do that, this happens, or how do you do that first? That gives you time. Time is important as a GM. And you can say, okay, so you do that, how do you do it? Okay. And how they do it gives you the mechanism for what you get them to roll. And it also gives you the idea of how you can go about reacting to what they've done. Oh, we break into the building. Okay, how do you do that? Going through the windows? Okay, so immediately they're going to have to either... Or, well, how do you go in through the windows? This is the thing, always ask questions. We break into the building. How? We go in through the windows. How do you go in through the windows? And they'll be like, okay, we break them. We smash the windows to go in through them. Okay, so what are you using to smash them? And they'll be all like, okay, well, we're going to use our clubs. Okay, so first of all, you're rolling break tests against the windows. Sorted. handle that. Now, do they want to try and do it quietly? Because smashing windows probably isn't a very good way to do it quietly, but maybe they've got some idea of how they can smash the windows quietly. Maybe they've got like a silence spell or something. Some sort of noise cancelling generator. Who knows? And if they've got something that lets them do it silently, by all means. But then do the windows have security on them? I mean, I know of some windows in like real life where if you smash them, an alarm will go off because you've broken a circuit. Does that happen? If it does, well, first of all, did they do anything to check to see if that would be the case? If they didn't, well, tough shit, off it goes. You might be able to give them some sort of perception or knowledge roll instinctively to see if they would know that, but most of the time they won't. So there, bang. You've got security alerted, security can respond. And with that in mind, pause the game, missed the space key on my keyboard. That's the end of the episode. So as usual, give it a like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, feel free to leave a comment below, whether it's about this game that's been going on in the background, Europa Universalis IV I believe it's called. Yep. Or what I've been yabbering on about, and that'd be, well, really cool. So in the meantime, I've been Sub, you have been yourselves. Later.